Welcome to the Old Guy AI podcast, brought to you by MongoDB. And now, here's Scott Sanchez and Pete Johnson.
Hello there. Today is Wednesday, October 22nd, and welcome to the Old Guy AI podcast. I'm Pete Johnson. With me, as always, good friend Scott Sanchez. And Scott, there's kind of only one topic today.
Tell me more. What could it be?
What could it possibly be? I actually had a really nice outline written up on agentic commerce, given a McKinsey paper that dropped on Friday. But pretty much the whole tech world stopped yesterday when our friends at OpenAI announced ChatGPT Atlas, the new browser, and it was for immediate use. I downloaded it and used it a little bit last night. Did you do the same?
I did. Yeah, absolutely.
And what was your experience? I had an odd experience that led me on an odyssey this morning that I'll talk about in more detail.
I mean, it felt like a browser. Things rendered the way you would expect them to. GPT was built in. I don't know that to me felt like a super novel experience. Like, Chrome has Gemini and Gemini has Chrome, and right. And so, and it wasn't the first sort of AI enabled browser that's out there. It did feel like a nice seamless integration though. I have many other concerns which we can get to, but just from it was a browser.
Well, here's how it started for me. So I downloaded it. If you don't know, it's only available for the Mac. And my ChatGPT login happens to be the same as my Google login. So I'm using that as my authentication provider. So I downloaded it. I moved it in my applications folder. I started it up. It asked me to log in, and I went to YouTube just to see what experience I would have. And it immediately had already logged me into YouTube because I'm using the same set of OAuth tokens, and showed me, customized content based on what my YouTube browsing history had been. And I couldn't remember, and maybe you can remind me, whether or not, if you get a fresh Chrome browser and you log into Chrome, does it automatically forward that? I was a little creeped out by just that part of it at the beginning. And maybe it's just because I haven't done it with a fresh browser in so long.
I do think that once you're logged into Chrome, you are logged into every other Google service. I think it's only when you go to your account settings or, purchases or something that you have to re-authenticate. But as long as you're logged into Chrome, you're logged in across the entire Google ecosystem.
Okay. So that's my memory failing me. So then what I did is I may be the world's oldest Fortnite player, but I play a fair bit of Fortnite, and there was a new video about how in November there's supposedly going to be a mini season that's got a Simpsons map to it. So I started playing my favorite Fortnite YouTuber who's explaining what that map might be like. 10-minute video. I stopped after 2 minutes, and then I click on the button in the upper right that says Ask ChatGPT, and I asked it to confirm the sources around this. And I was intentionally vague. I said this to see if it would pick up on the context of what I was just watching, and it absolutely did. It took some kind of context. It made some searches. It found me some websites that were corroborating what I'd just seen in the video as to where the sources were for this new Fortnite map. But then I spent a couple of prompts trying to trick the LLM into telling me how did it structure its context window. And it turns out what it did was it downloaded the transcript that you can automatically get with a YouTube video, and it popped that into the context window for me. And that's how it knew what I was talking about when I said, expand on this, and it used that content accordingly.
Okay. I mean, YouTube itself now has an ask button that shows up for most videos, which is essentially just Gemini. And I use it all the time. I'll open a hour and a half long podcast or an interview or something. I'd be like, cool, give me timestamps on this because whoever creator didn't put timestamps, and tell me the key points. And, again, to my comment, yeah, ChatGPT integrated to a browser didn't seem like super novel. Was it seamlessly integrated? Sure. But there was no killer feature that I uncovered in my, I don't know, half hour that I browsed around with it. And you're more brave than I am. I actually didn't like let it log into things, and we can get into why. But I just wasn't there yet.
Well, so I kind of didn't have a choice because it wouldn't launch the browser unless I logged into my ChatGPT login, which happened to be authenticated with Google. So I kind of didn't have a choice. So I went to bed, and when I woke up this morning, I thought, okay, I'm curious. Like it took that transcript. Is it caching it locally, or did it do something else with it? And while I was investigating how it might be caching that content locally, and by the way, it's not, I stumbled upon a pretty big security flaw that all other browsers have solved for close to a decade. And I'm really surprised that this slipped through whatever the release process is for OpenAI. So I posted about this on LinkedIn today after attempting to try to log it as a bug with OpenAI, and I'll get to that part as well. But essentially what happens is most browsers will store auth tokens. They'll cache them in a particular folder on your Mac, and they typically put that in a SQLite database. Pretty common. What's uncommon that ChatGPT Atlas does is the file permissions on that file that contains that SQLite database are more expansive than you would think. I didn't wake up this morning thinking I still knew Unix file system bitmap math, but it turns out I do. Most of the time, what they'll do is 600. So read and write for the current user, no access to anybody, any other groups, no access to other processes on the system. The OpenAI SQLite database was 644, so far more expansive and potentially dangerously expansive, because if you've got some other malware running on your system, it can read this file. The second way it was concerning is the OAuth tokens that are in that SQLite database are not encrypted. And that's not what Chrome does. That's not what Firefox does. That's not what Safari does. It encrypts all those. So not only was I able to do queries against that as a different process, I was able to extract them and then use those tokens, which are good for the next 9.5 days. And I was able to extract my personal profile through the OpenAI API and my conversation history, not just my conversation history with Atlas, my conversation history with anything related to ChatGPT. So once I discovered this, I tried to find like, how do you log this with OpenAI? I didn't find anywhere. So finally, after sort of some crisis of conscience and trying to figure out like, what's the right thing to do here, that I made this discovery. I posted about it on LinkedIn. Some other friends chimed in and confirmed what I saw. I sent the script that I used to test all this to a coworker. He confirmed it. I had someone else confirm, yeah, it doesn't look like there's anywhere to do a bug report. So the TLDR is like, don't install this right now because it has a malware issue. It's easily fixed. It's not like this is a novel problem or one we don't know how to fix as an industry. They just didn't do it. And that's the part that I find most concerning. So what is it about the testing and product management going on at OpenAI that this slipped through the gates and made it out the door for, potentially several million people downloading and installing this morning?
I mean, they have like, I don't know, close to 1 billion average monthly users, so could be more. I made a post yesterday just about the relentless pace of releases coming out of OpenAI, including this most recent one with the browser. What's interesting to me about that whole thing, Pete, is that I genuinely wonder if they had just run that code and configuration through ChatGPT or through Codex, like, I feel like it would have found that. It would have said like, hey, this is not best practice in 2025 or 1995. And, you shouldn't do it this way. Here's how you should do it. Like it really should have found that, assuming they even took the time to do that. And that would be an interesting query to run yourself, is to say, hey, I found in this browser, you don't say which browser, but I found in this browser that it's storing things this way. What do you think about that? Because I bet you ChatGPT itself would say this is not the right way to do it. But what you illustrate validates for me my decision not to log in. I mean, I logged into ChatGPT, but I didn't log into any web service, including Google, that I was browsing around in. I just stayed sort of, you know, I guess the equivalent of roughly incognito mode, because I wasn't logged into anything. Because for some reason, despite, I've plenty of unfiltered conversations with ChatGPT like we all do, um, I've never given it access, even with the new apps feature that launched a couple of weeks ago. I didn't give it access to anything that I might consider personal and confidential. Um, and that's in stark difference to Google, who's like, overwhelmingly their business model is to monetize my information. They're pretty open about that, right? Like their whole advertising business and everything else, right? Like they use what they know about me to make money from me. But for some reason, I guess because I've been using Gmail for 20 plus years and they already know so much about me from everything else, I think I've crossed that hurdle with them. Um, I know a lot of people on their security team. They take it very seriously. They invest very, very heavily. And I'm not saying OpenAI doesn't at a macro level, but just given the pace at which they're trying to ship things and succeeding, you know, it it's inevitable that bugs are going to arise. It's inevitable that security vulnerabilities are going to happen. Um, but it is odd to me that they have a system that probably could have prevented this, and it appears they didn't use it, or it failed.
Well, so here's you didn't know this unless you looked at my LinkedIn comments in the last 30 minutes, but I tried it. So there's no way that they
put on LinkedIn. Did you read my post? I don't read your posts. No. You tried it.
So I tried that exact thing. I went, so once I discovered this vulnerability, because I'm not a security person and I wanted to check myself, and I thought they have to have run this through their own system, right? So I pulled up a new browser tab on Chrome and I said, hey, these tokens are stored in, libraries / caches / new browser that I'm not going to tell you the name of / cache.db, and the permissions are 644. What are the ramifications of that? And what it came back with was, well, the tokens are exposed on disk, unencrypted. Anybody or any process that can read that file can extract them. The file permissions means that they're readable by any local user. It's just weaker than the usual 600 or keychain storage. And it said under this immediate security ramifications, local token theft is trivial. Like it's trivial to do. It's so trivial, I figured it out in 90 minutes, and I'm not a security guy. So there's no way they ran this through their own system before publishing this to potentially hundreds of millions of people in the last 24 hours.
So the fact that you and I both independently thought that would be a good idea, but no one at OpenAI apparently thought to do that, or maybe prompted their own service wrong. I don't know. Asked the wrong question. That just sort of validates for me that while they are pushing the envelope in terms of AI and user experience, certainly with all these new sort of integrated experiences, they've got some work to do to earn the kind of trust from users and enterprises that are going to take this thing, allow this thing to get to the next level. Like a simple overlooked vulnerability like this could set adoption back a year with security team.
Yeah, it could. And it was preventable. And it's a pattern that the other browsers have been using for a decade. But I think that segues us to the longer term thing. I mean, this is a bug they're going to fix inside of a week. It shouldn't have gotten through the system to begin with. This is an easy bug to fix. But so what you're talking about, the longer term implications are the data privacy. And do we trust OpenAI the same that we trust Google? I want to read you something. So our friends at the Register, if you've ever tried to get a piece published about your product on the Register, those guys, like if you can win them over, it's gold. They are a tough crowd, and with good reason. Their article on the release of the browser of ChatGPT Atlas reads as follows: OpenAI releases a bot Tom feeding browser with ChatGPT built in. And the subheading is why experience the web for yourself when there's so much privacy to surrender.
As usual, they did a good job on the headline. They're not wrong. They're not wrong. And I don't know, like if I had to trade off them continuing to move as fast as they are or them always getting it 100% right, I would lean towards continue to move fast. And as a user, you just have to understand that, not that a browser is bleeding edge. Like to your point, this stuff's been fixed and established as best practices a long time ago, and they just sort of chose or forgot to follow them. But I'd rather they continue to move fast and not always get it right. What's your take?
Well, there's getting it right and there's getting it reckless. And I think this thing that I stumbled into borders on reckless. It's not like they were having some new frontier or novel problem in the security domain that no one had ever solved before. This was well solved. They just didn't go through the steps. And that speaks to their testing processes and to their product management. You can certainly go fast and you can certainly break things and so forth, but you don't have a release of this magnitude when you know you're going to have a spotlight shown on you because of all the other things associated with this company and get something this simple that wrong. There's a balance to be had here, and I think they need to pump the brakes just a little bit. I'm with you that they shouldn't pull the parking brake, but I think having the accelerator pushed to the floor the whole time is going to end up being dangerous at some point.
Do you know, since you did a bunch of poking around under the covers, do you know, like, are they using Chromium as their base? So that, like, what are they using as the base for this?
I thought I read that it was Chromium. I mean, that gives you the core engine, but there's of course lots of other things to do, like the integration with the core ChatGPT engine. So yeah, I think they're using Chromium. But I want to go back to something you said a little bit earlier, which is why do we trust Facebook and Google sort of as a society in a way that now you and I are having personal problems with trusting OpenAI in quite the same way? Is it length of time? Is it something like, what is it about it that I can't quite pinpoint it myself as to why I'm having trouble with this?
I trust Facebook as far as I can throw them. So maybe you're putting the OG and the old guy AI podcast here, that you trust them maybe more than I do. I do trust Google, and I think some of that probably comes from the fact that, like, over a long term, I've known a lot of people that have been on their security team, and the pedigree that they bring with them, and the lengths that they go to protect customer data and fight back against baseless warrants. And it's not that Google's perfect by any stretch of the imagination. They are a big ass for-profit company, using me and my data as their revenue stream. But I don't know. I think some of it has to do with time, and some of it has to do with pedigree, and the number of times they've gotten it right over the years versus wrong, and how they respond to incidents and situations. And I just haven't really seen that from OpenAI in this latest. I felt that way before your discovery yesterday, and now I really feel that way about OpenAI. And we'll probably be more cautious about what I put into ChatGPT versus what I use Gemini for, to be completely honest, for some period of time, like until OpenAI earns, I can't even say earns back, because they're still earning my trust on the stuff that I find most personal and most sensitive. Maybe I'll just keep using Gemini for that.
Well, I draw my lines too, and they might seem arbitrary to other people, and maybe I'm just fooling myself. But so I don't trust Facebook either. I haven't logged in or had Facebook on my phone in probably 8 years, for similar reasons, right? Because Zuck was out there talking about how, if you go back 10 years ago, that online privacy is a myth and we need to move on to society and all those kinds of things. And when you hear Altman talking about like dismissing concerns over copyrighted material and things like that, like it has a similar ring to it. I remember feeling, I don't know, about 10 years ago that like if I'm going to function as like a high functioning technical person in this industry, I have to choose someone to trust. Like I can't go completely off the grid because of how I make my living. And I chose Google for some of the same reasons that you just listed. I know some of the people there. Um, they learned it over a long haul. There was a long time where where they weren't using Gmail in quite the same way they were today. They weren't using, they kind of parsed that out. I still do get freaked out if I'm having my wife and I are having a conversation about our next vacation, and then the next YouTube TV ad is for one of the places we were just talking about. Like that happens. But I feel like if I have to trust one company, I'm cool trusting Google with my generative AI stuff. And again, maybe I'm being foolish here. I trust Anthropic because I'm paying them $100 a month for me to trust them, and I'm going to trust that in exchange for that. And having read through the terms and conditions at both, at all these different companies, they seem to be like they're doing it in a way that satisfies me and with my wife who went to law school. So yeah, I'm having trouble with this, and some of it comes with the way that Altman talks to the media about some of these things and is dismissive in a way that's very similar to the way Zuck was when Facebook was really expanding 10, 15 years ago. But you got to trust somebody at some point, and yeah, I got my eggs in the Google basket as well.
I wonder, it just brought me back to the old Google, was it like, don't be evil?
Yeah.
Right, that you don't hear them say very much anymore, but they did for a really long time. That's what they were building that brand around for a very long time. And when I think about what OpenAI is doing, and again, I'm a full supporter of them continuing to move fast. Maybe don't be reckless, but move fast, because I and the world needs more of the stuff that you're working on. I feel like instead of don't be evil, they're more saying like, let's redefine evil. Like, let's come up with a new way of thinking about evil that is AI powered and built for this new world that we're all building together. Right? I don't know, as a technologist, as a geek, I'm here for it in terms of like, what is this going to do to our world? I just don't know if I'm ready to put all of my information in that basket.
Well, here's my litmus test for it. We both have kids roughly the same age in college or older. And after I experimented last night and I saw what it did with that YouTube transcript, before bed, I texted my daughter and said, under no circumstances are you to download this and put it on your Mac until I say it's okay.
I think if downloading ChatGPT's browser is the worst thing my kids do at college, I'm probably okay with that.
Fair. I mean, they're still on the insurance, right? So there's that to worry about. Any other topics you want to cover today, or do you think that does it for the day?
I don't know what could top that. I mean, it's the biggest news in tech. You personally uncovered, a major security vulnerability that hopefully is being fixed or has been fixed already as we record this. Pat yourself on the back, I guess, for being at the bleeding edge of state-of-the-art AI security research. I think that'll do it.
Now, next week, you're going to be traveling, and I'm going to be traveling too, but we're going to try our first guest in. So we're going to sub out for you with a guest for next week. So you got to tune in next week to see who the guest is.
Ooh, a teaser. I love it.
I know, right?
And who knows? Who knows what else OpenAI is going to launch between now and then that you can also break and talk about.
So until then, thanks everybody for watching and for listening.
This has been the Old Guy AI Podcast. Views expressed here do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the sponsors or the employers of any hosts or guests.